She walks in, and the entire room shifts color. The air tightens. Every man's gaze locks onto her like moths drawn straight into fire. That beauty of hers isn't the soft tenderness of an angel. It's the sharp edge of a blade, polished by countless hands. Thousands of touches, rehearsed glances repeated until they've become muscle memory. And yet men believe they're witnessing something unique. The truth. They're just watching the same play she's performed 1,000 times before. You pride yourself on being logical, strategic, even cunning. Then tell me, why do you go blind the second you stand in front of a woman who's been with many men before you? Why can you smell betrayal in business deals? Why can you spot disrespect from another man at the bar, but fail to see the fingerprints of others etched into the very smile, the very gaze, the very embrace you think was made for you alone? The brutal truth doesn't live in women. It lives in you, in men. In the choice you keep making, the choice to clutch the illusion instead of facing the reality. And right here, right now, you have a decision to make. Either you wake the hell up, or you keep getting torn apart by the fantasies you refuse to let go of. Do you know what made Machiavelli great? Not that he was ruthless, but that he dared to stare at the naked truth everyone else tried to avoid. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men are deceived by the things they desire." Nowhere is that more true than in love, where men become prey to their own hunger. Men fool themselves into thinking, this feeling must be real. They believe that fire in their chest is destiny. But let's cut the bullshit. It's just biology. Your brain mixes dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin into a cocktail and then slaps a label on its soulmate. You think it's truth? No. It's a hallucination coded into you by evolution thousands of years ago, pushing you to chase, to risk, to fall. And women who've been with many men, they know this game better than you ever will. She knows exactly how to smile to light up your reward system. She knows the subtle touch on your arm that makes your heart leap like some teenager discovering intimacy for the first time. You don't realize that what feels spontaneous is actually a skill sharpened by endless repetition. Like a musician who can play the same song flawlessly with eyes closed. She plays you with the same practiced precision. Not because she's evil, but because it's survival. In the brutal marketplace of modern relationships, women become artists of illusion. Yet men still lie to themselves, clinging to the fantasy that she's different from the others. But is she? Or is that just the story you need to believe to keep your ego intact? Nietzsche said it best, "We love lies when they soothe us more than truth ever could." Men fall in love with illusions because reality tastes too bitter to swallow. Here's the paradox. A businessman can be cold, sharp, and surgical at the negotiation table, spotting the smallest clause designed to cheat him. But in love, the same man turns blind, gullible, buying every whispered word as if it were sacred, even when those same words have been recycled for dozens before him. That's why men collapse. Not because women are master deceivers, but because men choose to be deceived. They choose what's easy to swallow. They choose comfort over clarity. Like a lion who believes he's the hunter, when in reality he's already walking straight into the trap. So the question is, how many times will you repeat this cycle before you finally rip the blindfold off? But pause for a moment. You think you're in love with her true self? Wrong. What you're in love with is the image she crafted, a painting made with the very colors you're starving for. And here's the cruelest part, she knows exactly which colors make you addicted. Psychology calls it the mirror effect. A woman who's lived through many relationships learns to reflect your hidden desires back at you. If you crave gentleness, she'll show just enough softness at the right time. If you crave strength and independence, she'll tell stories of storms she weathered all on her own. You think it's truth. In reality, it's technique. Like an actress reading the script written in your eyes and playing the role you're desperate to see. This is why Machiavelli spoke about the power of appearances. A prince doesn't need to be truly virtuous, he only needs to appear so. A woman doesn't need to be pure or different, she only needs to make you believe she is. And you, the man starved for illusion, sign the emotional contract without ever reading the fine print. This explains why men scream betrayal when the truth surfaces. But tell me who really betrayed you. Did she? Or did you betray yourself by ignoring the signals that were always there? The evasive answers when her past came up. The repeated stories with details that never quite matched. The subtle glances between her friends when your name was mentioned. Every piece was part of the puzzle, but you refused to assemble it. Because deep down, you knew the finished picture would shatter you. Freud once said, "Humans cannot bear too much reality. They need illusions to survive." But here's the difference: men demand to live as victims of those illusions while pretending they are strong. You claim you want freedom, but you clutch chains because they look beautiful. You claim you want honor, but you bow before sweet lies because they taste better than bitter truth. And here's the tragedy: when the mask finally falls, most men don't grow wiser. They either blame women or sink into bitterness. You've heard it, all women are corrupted. But that's just another illusion in disguise. Another way to dodge responsibility by inventing a universal villain. You think you're awake, but you're still being led just by the opposite extreme. So what do men actually need? Not hatred of women, not worship of women. What men need is to see through the illusion and learn to read its code. When you notice a smile not as cute, but as a strategy. When you recognize a glance not as chance, but as a psychological lever. When you strip the theater down to its mechanics. That's when you step out of the audience. And then you face the only question that matters. Will you keep living like a man, hypnotized, a puppet of dopamine and fantasy, or will you cut the strings, knowing that freedom means staring at truth? Raw, cold, and merciless. That answer doesn't just decide the fate of your love life. It decides the way you walk through the rest of your life. Because if a man cannot stay awake in love, he won't stay awake anywhere else. The moment you pierce the veil, the world is never the same again. That smile that once made your chest burn now echoes like an old song performed for countless audiences before you. That embrace that once convinced you you were the only one now feels like a rehearsed gesture polished like a salesman wrapping gifts for the 100th time. Truth doesn't just sting, it tears apart the identity you once clung to. This is the collapse stage. Many men never recover from it. They sink into despair, convinced they've been robbed of their specialness. Some turn bitter, declaring every woman an enemy. Others shut down, becoming hollow shells too scared to feel again. Both paths are failures. Why? Because bitterness is just another form of slavery. You're still chained to what hurt you. Nietzsche warned us, if you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you. If you let disillusion consume you, you become exactly what you despise. Faithless, powerless, incapable of true strength. But Machiavelli offered another path. He never told princes to withdraw from the world. He told them to see it as rulers. A prince doesn't collapse when he discovers betrayal in his court. He learns to read betrayal, use it, and bend the board to his will. The same applies to men. Once you see that love is filled with scripts and illusions, your task isn't to curse the theater, it's to walk backstage and watch the entire production from above. This is rebirth. When you wake up, you stop demanding purity to validate your worth. You stop needing to be the only chapter in her invisible diary. You stop shattering when you realize you're chapter 30, not chapter 1. Instead, you rewrite the rules. You see the techniques, the smiles, the touches, the words, and rather than being swept away, you decide how to respond. She tells you, I've never felt this way with anyone else. The old you would melt. The awakened you smiles quietly inside, knowing it's a line, and you choose whether to play along or not. She says, "You're different. The old you believed." The awakened you asks, "Different how?" or just another recycled script. In this stage, freedom blooms. You're no longer dragged by illusions, and you don't need to hate them either. You watch, you analyze, and most importantly, you choose. Choose to engage if it serves you. Choose to walk if it drains you. Choose to remain sovereign instead of enslaved. Picture yourself in a theater. The curtain rises, actors step out, lights blind the crowd. Most men swoon, believing every word is truth. But you, the awakened man, sit still knowing it's all a play. And instead of being enchanted, you smirk because you know you can leave at any moment, or even step onto the stage and alter the script. That is power. Not the power to control others, but the power to govern yourself. No panic when truth hits. No illusion of uniqueness. No collapse when the play repeats. You turn truth into a weapon instead of letting it make you a victim. The only question left: do you have the courage to pass through this collapse and be reborn? Or will you stay like the majority, blind, bitter, forever trapped inside a theater you don't control? Once you've stepped out of blindness and survived the collapse, you stand at a crossroads. One path drags you back into the same old theater where you sit as just another audience member, waiting to be entertained, waiting to be deceived, waiting to be chosen. The other path is harsher, but infinitely more powerful. The path of clarity, where you stop being the spectator and become the player, even the one who controls the game. This is the essence of the Machiavellian man. The Machiavellian man no longer sees women as saints or sinners. He sees them as human beings with histories, strategies, and skills. And because he's no longer enslaved by the illusion of purity, he's free to evaluate with cold precision. Does this relationship serve my sovereignty, or does it threaten it? That single shift changes everything. In a world where social media turns every photo into a weapon, where every Instagram smile is the 100th retake perfected for maximum effect, the Machiavellian man cannot be fooled. He looks at the image and asks, what is this designed to trigger in me? What weakness is it trying to exploit? In asking the question, he reclaims the rarest power in today's world, the power of attention. Attention. That's the most precious currency modern men are bleeding away. You like, you comment, you chase, you text, you pour yourself out, and every drop of it lowers your value. The Machiavellian man doesn't do that. He spends attention like a king spends gold, strategically, selectively, and only where it multiplies his strength. That doesn't make him cold. On the contrary, it makes him magnetic, because he is unattached. When women realize he cannot be pulled into the same spell that works on everyone else, they either walk away or become haunted by the primal question, why doesn't this man fall like the others? And in that moment, the balance of power shifts. Most men think the way to attract women is to try harder, buy flowers, send more texts, prove their worth. But here's the cruel truth. Desperate effort only makes you identical to the endless line of men before you. The Machiavellian man is different. He attracts not by chasing, but by choosing. He doesn't run after validation because he knows he can walk alone. And paradoxically, that self-sufficiency is exactly what makes him rare. And the power doesn't stop with love. Once you learn not to be fooled by illusions in romance, you start seeing through illusions everywhere. You see the fake smiles of politics for what they are, a technique. You hear business promises for what they are, plays. You recognize the bro trust me at the bar as nothing but cheap theater. And the moment you see through, you stop being the victim. You become the decider. But clarity comes with a cost. You'll find fewer people who can stand next to you without masks. You'll feel lonelier because most of the world prefers illusion. Yet Machiavelli would remind you, a wise prince does not seek comfort in the crowd, but power in clarity. The Machiavellian man is not heartless, he is clear. He is not hateful, he is ungoverned by blind emotion. And because of that, he becomes the rarest thing in this age, a man who is truly free. So the final question: do you have the courage to become this kind of man? Or will you stay asleep, another puppet tangled in dopamine strings, begging for illusions until the day they finally break you? Now you see it. This world doesn't run on truth. It runs on illusion. The smiles you once trusted, the "I've never felt this way" with anyone else you once held on to. Just lines from a play, repeated until perfected. The truth is brutal enough to crush any man who isn't built to face it. And here's your final choice: collapse or be reborn. Most men collapse. They cling to illusions, begging to stay blind. Or worse, they let bitterness rot them from the inside, turning into men who hate but never grow. Both paths are chains. The Machiavellian man walks the third path, the path of clarity. He doesn't hate and he doesn't worship. He observes, understands, and decides. He doesn't beg to be loved. He chooses who is worthy of walking beside him. And here's the bitter medicine: clarity will make you lonelier. The crowd won't understand you. Women will call you hard to read. Your friends may say you're too cold. But in that solitude, you find the one thing most men never touch: freedom. Freedom from illusions. Freedom from the games you never controlled. Freedom to stand tall, unbowed before fake promises and borrowed smiles. And if you're still here listening now, it means some part of you has already awakened. Don't let it go back to sleep. Don't return to the same cycle tomorrow. If you've woken up, forge it into steel in your blood, a blade in your hand. And finally, I don't speak to you as a guru, but as a brother. If this truth has struck you, don't hoard it. Share this message with another man. Not as a fan, but as an ally. Subscribe not as a follower, but as a soldier standing in the same line. Because this is bigger than love. This is the battle to reclaim your honor, your strength, and the freedom of your soul.